Peter Badel, you've made it to Sydney, mate. Errol Spence versus Tim Tszyu. Impressions on fight week so far, Pete?
Well, I only just got here this morning, Macca, for the telecast, and here at the Star, it's got a Vegas vibes, hasn't it? Like a great turnout here today. There were hundreds of people, had a real crackle in the air, which is great, and it's what this fight deserves because it's going to be one of the best events we've ever seen in Australian boxing. I can't wait. It's creeping up quicker than I thought, and you just felt, looking at Tim and Errol on stage, I mean, Errol's cool as a cucumber, but Tim just had that sense of, this is a big occasion for me, possibly a career-defining occasion, and I think we're going to see a real special fight on Sunday.
Who's got more pressure on them in this fight, Pete? You know, Errol seems to be pointing towards Tim, but I'd see it if Errol Spence loses to Tim Tszyu, that's got to affect his legacy. I mean, who's got the pressure on him in this fight, Pete?
It's a good point, Mac. I didn't think about that necessarily, but I said in the telecast, for me, I think the pressure's on Tim Tszyu, and I'll explain why. I just think when you look at what's at stake and what they have to face, Tim Tszyu, to me, has never fought anyone like Errol Spence. I mean, I know people are saying Spence is shot, he hasn't fought for 3 years, he's 36 years old, but if you look at the resumes, he's beaten 7 world champions. His amateur record was 135-12, Errol Spence. Just a phenomenal generational talent, top 5 pound-for-pound fighter at one stage of his career. And I think there's nothing that Tim Tszyu will pose that Errol hasn't seen before. Conversely, Tim will see a lot of things that I don't believe he's seen before. And thus, on home soil, the pressure is on Tim Tszyu because, to me, if Tim loses this fight, he has to seriously consider retirement because I don't know where he goes if he doesn't beat Errol Spence. So, look, I know he's only 31, Tim, but I just feel like in terms of routes and navigations and where you go, I guess very rarely in boxing are you static. You're either on the rise or you're on the decline. And if Tim can't win this, then I think it's almost over for him. But I really hope he can win. My heart says he can do it, but my head says that Errol Spence's best is still better than Tim Tszyu's best, and that's what Tim has to conquer. That's why the pressure's on him.
Now, mate, there are some whispers about, you know, some informal talks of a rematch in this fight, I hear. What can you tell us on that, Pete?
Yeah, so I broke this story earlier, Macca. So there's no official clause in the contract for a rematch. There's no clause in the fight contract as it stands. But I'm told that in recent days there's been some discussions, just preliminary, as you said, informal, about these two guys having a rematch. Now, I've heard the venue would be back in Dallas, Spence's home turf, and looking around December, November, just before Christmas, if it was to happen. Now, obviously, this will be predicated largely on how this fight transpires. I mean, if it's a one-sided cakewalk for either man, I don't think there'd be a great appetite for a rematch. However, if we see a 12-round thriller and a slugfest and a real war where maybe one man gets it on a split decision, there'd be a real appetite to have a rematch, and I think both men would feel the same. So ultimately, there is talk of a rematch. There's no clause in the contract that says it must happen or will happen, but I think depending on the quality of the fight on Sunday, we could see Tszyu Spence-Tszyu in America, which would be fascinating stuff.
Does this surprise you? I mean, where are those talks coming from? Are you hearing it's from the Spence side, or is it more, you know, from the Tim Tszyu side? Where are those talks coming from, Pete?
Well, I've heard that both camps have had dialogue, so it's gone between both of them. Now, obviously, there's a good relationship between No Limit, Tszyu's promoters, and PBC, Spence's promoters. They've collaborated on cards before. Of course, they did the 2 fights between Tszyu and Fendora in America, so there is a history of rematches for Tszyu. Whether he would want to go down that route, given the psychological damage he suffered in those losses to Fendora, remains to be seen. But also, Jay, there's talk about Tim Tszyu fighting Errol Lara if he wins this fight. So, I mean, I guess if there's a world title on the line for him, he'd probably want to bypass the rematch anyway and go straight to Lara, which would be a very winnable fight at Lara's age.
Yeah. Mate, a lot of the dialogue in this fight build-up has been around, you know, Tim Tszyu's choice of Jeff Fenech as his trainer and such. Is there pressure on Jeff Fenech in this fight to get the result for Tim Tszyu?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. I mean, look, you could argue on one hand that Jeff's inheriting a fighter who's 31, has had 30 fights, and what can you do with a guy who's approaching the back end of his career, and he's basically got the mechanics set. His fight style's his fight style, but I still believe that Jeff Fenech was the guy that he has been our greatest boxer. He's seen as a bit of a talisman for Tim Tszyu in this. I mean, Tim Tszyu to me was searching not so much for maybe technical advice, but I think someone who was could be almost a life coach for him, a source of comfort, someone that understood how he ticked. And I know Tim has said himself sometimes he didn't feel like certain people had his back along the journey. And that's why he's reached out to Jeff Fenech, because he feels Jeff has his back completely and he's known him since he was 3 years old. So I think there's massive pressure on Jeff. I think tactically he'll have to match Ronnie Shields. And I know speaking to Jeff, he said, I'll be in the corner on Sunday, barking instructions, being very clear to the referee, because I know Jeff feels that some of Tim's teams in the past have let him down, notably with the cut at T-Mobile Arena that day on that bloody Sunday, which was a debacle for Tim Tszyu when it should have been a stop fight and it wasn't. So Jeff Fenech's now got to put his money where his mouth is. He's been critical of Tim's teams in the past. He believes he potentially can do better. Well, let's see if he can do better.
Mate, we saw the other day Nikita's next fight has been made official. Ben Marnie, late August. We don't have a venue yet, mate. Impressions on that fight and any intel on where that fight could take place?
No, I don't have any intel on venues yet, although I wouldn't be surprised if I had heard Adelaide was a potential left field option, because they haven't been there for Nikita. So Adelaide was one venue, but Newcastle or Zoocastle as we call it, Mac, is always one option. But look, when you ask about the fight itself domestically, lovely fight, really like it. I think it's the right fight at the right stage for Nikita. I still don't think he's yet. I know there's talk, I mean, if he wins this fight, that he gets Josh Kelly for the IBF world title. That's too dangerous for me. I wouldn't go down that route just yet. I think Nikita needs more time, even though what I saw against Oscar Diaz was magnificent. It was delectable. I thought his execution in that fight was better than anything I ever thought he'd put together. So he's approaching that world-class level now, Nikita. Well, he's world-ranked. So I think Ben Marnie, though, is one of the best domestic tests he can have. I mean, there's a few guys that he could still clean the backyard out with. I mean, Andrew Hunt. I think Andrew Hunt would be a magnificent opponent. Ben Hussein, he's a big boy. Ben, I don't even know how he gets down to 154 sometimes, Ben. But Ben Marnie is a quality fighter, seasoned fighter, very good record, good pro. Probably doesn't have the power to really hurt Nikita, I don't believe. But he's wily, he's crafty, and I think Nikita will get crucial rounds with him. So it's a very good domestic fight.
Just last one for you, Pete. What are your thoughts on this lawsuit that we're hearing from Joe Opetaia and his lawsuit against the IBF? Any reaction to that one, Pete?
Look, I haven't read too much into it, I'll be honest, Macca, but I think it's quite a sad state of affairs that it's had to go down this route for Jai, but he obviously feels he's been aggrieved. They've engaged legal people to prosecute it as best they can. I still believe that, you know, in this, when we knew what Zuffa stood for and what Dana White was, if not promising, threatening, then you were always going to be playing with fire by having any dalliance with Zuffa. Jai's, whether he's maybe put the belts secondary to the money, I mean, he's had some massive paydays from Zuffa, good on him, he deserves it. Boxing's a deadly sport, it's a brutal sport, so good on Jai if he feels that this is setting him up for life financially. But it sometimes clearly comes at the expense of belts, and I just feel that I feel for Jai that he's been stripped, but technically I believe the IBF have every reason to strip him. I believe they've done the right thing in their eyes. If I'm an organisation seeing the threat of Zuffa, I'd strip him as well. So that's unfortunately the situation he finds himself in. I hope he gets the result that he wants, and we'll see what the final outcome is in the fullness of time.
Just last one for you, mate. Official prediction, Errol Spence, Tim Tszyu. How does this fight play out, Pete? Come on, Pete. No sitting on the fence. How does it play out, Pete? What the audience love is that you tell it how it is, so official prediction, Pete.
I've got to show some balls here, don't I, Macca?
Come on, Pete.
Look, okay. My heart desperately wants Tim Tszyu to win, right? I really hope this isn't the end for Tim Tszyu. We've loved his journey. He's been a magnificent fighter, world champion. I want him to win this fight in my heart. My head says that Errol Spence is not finished. He's not done. But I don't believe the 3-year hiatus is as damaging as some people might think. I think the first 2 rounds for Tim are absolutely crucial, because I think both men will have some psychological demons. I feel that If Tim pressures Errol early, he can do damage. But I think the longer this fight goes, the more it plays into Errol's hands. He'll be a little bit rusty early. And I think if this fight goes beyond 7 or 8 rounds, Errol Spence will win the fight. My ultimate prediction is I think Spence wins.
There we go. We love the honesty, Pete. Appreciate your time, mate, as always.
Thanks, Macca. Anytime.